Fun. You guys cannot hear me. I guess I'll have to edit that out. Fun. Ha! Well, that's going to be interesting. I'd love to do that over again, but oh well. I already need a drink of water. This is great. So, how was that? How was that for a tropical update? Everything's all quiet. Everything's all fun. Nice. Amazing quality content already. Well, anyways, so, what I was just basically saying is I'm not exactly the most prepared thing right now, because I've been trying to record a video, with all the content that I've had from me catching that tornado. And so, yeah, I've been trying to create a video for that, and that kind of leads to me not having the best satellite data ready for you all. So, oh well. Big thing that I was talking about was the, it's starting to turn nighttime, so it's turning to a different style of satellite imagery, and so it might impact the quality of some of the satellite features here, but we're going to be talking about two things, obviously Grace and Henri, and the cool thing about us doing 8 o'clock advisories here, or 8 o'clock tropical updates, is that that's actually when the National Hurricane Center's latest advisory comes out for these tropical systems. So we will be able to actually cover this all in its entirety for just the duration and period of time. So let's go over to Grace and see what's up with her. And you can see how this thing has kind of been trying to hang on a little bit. It's still forecasted to intensify further once it gets in towards the Bay of Campeche, but we've got a lot of dry air here that's trying to seep into this little band. And actually, if I pause the image right here, you can actually see there's a lot less cloudiness right here. There's a lot of open sky right within this general vicinity, and that's a lot of dry air that's trying to seep into the inner core of Grace. And the thing about Grace is that it's really not going to matter all too much with this dry air, besides the fact that it probably won't rapidly intensify, although there is some chances that it could if it fends off most of the shear and decides to gather more and more thunderstorm activity around it. But very interesting to see here from satellite that we do have an inner core. It is vertically aligned so that the lower level circulation and the mid-level circulation are both right on top of each other, or at least aligned, I should say, as I said, vertically aligned. And so this will be one of those things to where we'll have to monitor as to how much it does strengthen over the Bay of Campeche, and how much this dry air does continue to be an impeding factor to this storm. Now, if we take a look at the National Hurricane Center and look at the latest forecast cone, the cone of uncertainty for the storm, you can see there's already been hurricane warnings issued out in front for the coastline here of Mexico, indicated in this red highlighter. And then you also have tropical storm warnings issued to the north of it, as well as tropical storm warnings still in effect for portions of the Yucatan Peninsula. But this thing is expected to become a hurricane again between the time period of tomorrow morning, which would be Friday morning to Friday evening, and then it is expected to make landfall sometime Friday evening into Saturday morning. You can see the H has been listed right along the coastline here, and they're expecting this to make landfall at around 1 a.m. Central Daylight Time. But it's just one of those things where we're going to have to monitor within the next 24 hours as to how much this does strengthen over the time that it is over this open water. The one thing that I do want to mention here is that right now it is a 60-mile-per-hour storm with a minimum pressure of 995 millibars, but this thing continues to move pretty quickly off to the west at 15 miles per hour, so it won't have a extended period of time to sit over water and continue to intensify. But a strong storm surge is expected with most of this storm here along portions of Mexico. If I take a look over at Radar Omega and I try and see here with the expected cone, some of the towns here expected to be impacted is Veracruz and north of Veracruz, and areas from Tampico and south of Tampico. So it'll be really interesting to see as to how this continues to propagate further westward, how strong this will be, and how wide this could potentially be as a tropical system. If we take a look real quickly at the satellite imagery of this storm, I can try and pull up a couple interesting things here. Here's the infrared satellite, as I mentioned, that we were going to pull up. But we can actually take a 3D of this and it looks so much better. So that's exactly what we're going to kind of do. And just by looking at the loop of this satellite imagery, you can see a lot of the main convection is displaced from the center. A lot of these outer bands swirling from the outside of it. But you also have some other bands that are swirling off towards the west of it. So it's definitely trying to get better organized. But as of right now, it's dealing with a lot of a lack of convection that is trying to gain more, trying to gain more convection, I should say. So lack of convection that is kind of prohibiting this thing from continuing to intensify rather rapidly. The one thing that I will say, though, is that because this thing is a little bit stronger than most people expected, this will potentially continue to intensify even as soon as it gets over water. And I'm not sure if there's any sort of aircraft reconnaissance that is heading off into the storm right now. But yeah, there actually is. So there is an aircraft reconnaissance mission that's heading straight into the storm right now. And we'll have to take a look at what they see here within the next couple of minutes. But the big thing here is that it really didn't weaken a whole lot. So we're going to have to see how much will be a limiting factor from that dry air. So speaking of that reconnaissance, let's go over to that aircraft reconnaissance. And they found some decent winds here. Decent winds of 45 knots, which would be around 50 miles per hour to maybe even 55 miles per hour. So not entirely too strong there from the Air Force reconnaissance. But if we go down to the NOAA reconnaissance, you can see that they actually found winds higher than that and upwards of 55 knots, which would be around 65 miles per hour. And if you guys remember, this thing is a 60 mile per hour storm, so that would make it a little bit stronger than the National Hurricane Center expected. That could also be a damaging wind gust at the surface, though, too. So really something that we're going to have to monitor. Potentially an upgrade at the 11 o'clock advisory as this continues to move on forward. And it looks like those are the only two reconnaissance missions that are actually in this storm. So that's the one thing with this. I want to see. I'm gonna continue to try and see if I can get radar here from these from this Hurricane Hunter, because I believe they might be able to do so. Probably not. Yeah, it doesn't look like they don't provide any sort of radar. Usually, sometimes, or I should say sometimes they do, but I'm not sure if they're able to provide that to the public, so I guess we'll have to see. But yeah, pretty cool stuff here from Grace as it continues to move on through. The thing of it is that we most likely don't need to use the models anymore. It seems how it only is expected to continue to move onwards within a short period of time. So it's definitely going to be something to watch out for, 100%. Let's go and move on to Henri. Henri is the big thing to notice here. Henri is the big thing that we got to talk about, actually. And we're going to wait for the satellite imagery to load, so we're just going to have the background imagery load here. And actually, I'm going to talk a little bit, just a little bit, about my experience with the tornado that I had. And it was actually pretty cool. On Twitter, got a bunch of people that are actually talking about this. Talking about the potential tornado that was over near Dillsburg on my cell. So, you know, who knows? We could potentially be really interesting to see if that actually was a tornado. And if it was, then, well, like I have a high probability that it is. It was a tornado, I should say. But, you know, of course, we gotta wait for the the National Weather Service to do its damage survey. Anyways, let's talk about Henri here. Let's talk about Henri. And here's the thing about Henri, too. The fact of the matter is that right now it's dealing with a lot of northerly shear. You can see how most of these cirrus clouds here, this little fluffiness that's coming off of the storm here, it's all moving this way. All of it, even these showers and thunderstorms are moving all over here. And so that's a big thing there to determine as to what type of environmental factors this thing is dealing with. And so another thing that we can also see from this too is that you notice how most of these surface clouds that are spinning here compared to on the south side where you don't actually see any of those clouds, that tells you that most of these thunderstorms are actually on the southern end of the vortex, meaning that most of the shear is actually pushing those thunderstorms off to that side. So that's a good indication of this northerly or northeasterly shear on the storm. And the big thing here as this continues to get closer and closer, we're going to take a look at the cone here. It will really have to depend upon how strong this is as this continues to move on through, but it is expected to make that turn right around Friday, the afternoon hours of Friday, and then continue to propagate northward as a potential hurricane, which it most likely will be a hurricane on its approach to New England. Now, the thing of it is here is that they actually forecast this to be a hurricane on its approach to places like Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard at around 2 p.m. Sunday. So if you know anyone who lives in New England in that general vicinity, anywhere, really, anywhere in New England, whether it's Rhode Island, Connecticut, Long Island, Massachusetts, like Cape Cod and stuff like that, this thing will be there at around that time. And the thing of it is, too, is that this thing will most likely stall there for the next day. You can see a day later, 2 p.m. Monday, it's expected to be a tropical storm, but it doesn't differentiate a whole lot. The distance between where it was before and after is not that far. And just for a reference here, you guys might be wondering, well, the distance between this and this isn't that far, but this is within the span of 12 hours. The big concern here is that this distance right here is over the span of 24 hours, and that'll be not only an excessive amount of rain, but storm surge will most likely be excessive within this area. And seems how this will, if this is true, and how this Henri will most likely be a hurricane and be right there around Nantucket. Little bit prior, at about noon, is when high tide is actually coming in for this area. So storm surge will most likely be expected to be relatively high within some of these areas, and we really need to watch out for this as this continues to create a more substantial approach to the north and east. So this is a really big thing that we have to watch out for as this continues to move on through. Let's see if I can go to the models here. And I decided to use GFS to show you the actual surface winds from the GFS here. It's a little bit better animated compared to some other forecast websites. Now, the only thing about it is that the GFS actually anticipates this thing to become pretty strong on its approach. So, in regards to whether or not this will actually be that same strength is coming into question, but otherwise, we'll take a look here at the loop. And as this continues to move off to the north, you can see it starts to get this eye characteristic here, and it is expected to become a bit more of a closed off circulation with maximum sustained winds of 87 miles per hour. And as this continues to move on forward to the north, I'm just going to start calling off maximum wind speeds. We have 87, as I mentioned, 89, 88, 84, 88 again, and then 90 mile per hour sustained winds, still a category 1, 92 right there, and then it starts to weaken as it continues to move away from the Gulf stream, the Gulf Stream. So a lot of activity as this continues to move off to the north, and then it's expected to progressively weaken as it continues to move closer and closer to the coast. Still expected to be a hurricane according to the GFS here as soon as it gets over there, and then obviously it starts to weaken more and more, and then it stalls out within this general vicinity too. So most likely storm surge and flooding will be a huge risk as this continues to move on through. And then another thing as well, a kind of unforeseen risk as this continues to move about, is that we talked about this this trough right here that's going to be steering the storm into New England, this low pressure system in my video this morning. And what that basically is going to do is that's going to create a very some decently strong upper level shear within this general area. And so some areas here, most likely on the eastern side of Cape Cod, could potentially see a small tornado risk within some of these areas. And even areas anywhere along New England might be a little bit lower, but the further east you go, the higher the tornado risk is within that general vicinity. So definitely something we got to watch out for as this continues to move on north. As I said, this is a live tropical update of the tropics. If you guys are new, please be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications, because I will be uploading videos every single morning, updating everyone on the pending danger, because this is a dangerous situation. I can't remember having a tropical system like this recently besides Sandy, and Sandy's obviously a lot more significant, but, well, I don't exactly know that right now because the storm still hasn't, exactly made landfall yet. But I haven't remembered seeing a system as strong as this in the Northeast or even in New England in quite a while. So please be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications for the latest information that will be provided to you, and that would be greatly appreciated. But yeah, very warm on warm waters here that this thing is going to be in for the most part. I believe that's what the Gulf Stream, right? Yeah, most likely. But then anyways, afterwards, this thing will continue to kind of propagate further, most likely as a tropical storm still, and then move off towards Nova Scotia. So not exactly too big within this. I had to look over at something off to the right-hand side because there's a kind of a lot of things that I'm trying to look at here. A lot of different stuff, but anyways, yeah, I want to take a look over here at some of the severe weather just to catch up on some of this activity, because there's a little bit of severe weather, if you guys remember from my video this morning. And I'm just curious as to what all is happening with these storms. There is a tornado watch in effect until what? I can't remember when tonight, but there is a tornado watch in effect. A few tornadoes possible, so not a huge chance for tornadoes, but still possible. Yeah, until 11 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. So, yeah. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's too much happening with the severe weather at the moment. I'll zoom out a little. There's this one severe storm down here as well. It's in a decent environment. I'll give it that. Upper level rotation sucks on it though, so might not form right now. It could form a little bit later, but we'll have to see. Darcy, welcome to the stream. Hello, hello. So, as much of you probably have noticed, someone else called in the chat that the National Hurricane Center actually found a new area to watch right off of Africa, and that is true. There is a new designation here. Not an invest yet, but it's still a disturbance that could form here within the next 5 days. A very low chance though of 20%, but still still a disturbance that we should watch out for, because things can flip a switch and basically form out of nowhere. Kind of similar to what Henri did. Henri originally had a formation chance of 20 to 30% within its first day, and then all of a sudden, it just really picked up out of nowhere. So We got to watch out for all sorts of different things with this as this continues to propagate forward. Drank all of my water already. Sheesh. Gonna take a look at the reconnaissance again and see if there is anything here. Did they seriously? Are they finished already? They said they were finished. That's unfortunate. The only thing that's fortunate, though, is that when they were leaving, they found 60 knot winds at the surface. So there you go. 60 knot winds at the surface. This thing's a 70 mile per hour tropical storm again, and is expected to intensify further and further. So, Grace most likely to become a hurricane. I'd say within the next 12 hours. Probably overnight. You could, by tomorrow morning when I make my video, we'd probably see a hurricane on our hands. But yeah, pretty interesting to say the least. This will be a short tropical update tonight. I actually am pretty worn out from yesterday's chase. I'm pretty sure you guys can notice. So I'm gonna get some good night's sleep tonight so that tomorrow, when we do have our severe weather event, which still looks kind of favorable, I'll show you guys the Storm Prediction Center again. And here you go. Massive 5% chance for tornadoes. Yeah, as I said, I'm probably going to get a little bit of sleep tonight because I am a bit worn out, but tomorrow I'm going to make a pretty good video talking all about Henri and how it continues to move off to the north, as well as the potential for some tornadoes with that. So I guess the big things here to take away from this live stream is that Henri is expected to become a hurricane. It is expected to stay as a hurricane on its approach to New England. All right, it's expected to continue to hold its strength, and we need to continue to watch out for it. Now, I am curious. The inner weather person in me is really curious. What is this? This is kind of funny. Pat Morris loves Chukupo. What's up? Welcome to the stream. Nene's Quarter. What's up? Welcome to the stream. I do like to have a little bit of fun, but what is this? What is this? Why are some of the models thinking that this will continue into the Pacific? And why do they think it'll intensify into a hurricane again when it's in the Pacific? What is this? What is this? All right, well, we're gonna go to Henri and what I actually wanted to see. Harley Rose, what's up? Welcome to the live stream. It's kind of a little bit laid back tonight, but at the same time, we're still trying to get information out. Any spaghetti models for Henri? Yeah, so the GEFS actually thinks, well, most of the GEFS thinks that this will stay off the coast. But there's a lot of them that still expect this to intensify into a hurricane, which makes sense. Taking a look at the ECMWF, take a look at Henri, and the Euro thinks that this will turn into New England. So that's... The thing of it is that the Euro actually originally thought that this will most likely not go into New England first. So now, since the Euro is kind of in agreement, there's a very high likelihood that we most likely will see some sort of impacts from this as this gets over there. Take a look at the Canadian model and see Henri there. And what is the Canadian model doing? Canadian model probably needs some help because this might be on the good stuff. Sheesh. That's crazy. What are the chances that Henri will hit Newfoundland and Labrador? There's a good chance. I think a lot of these models are taking the general consensus to Nova Scotia and Newfoundland anyway, so I definitely think it's a possibility. I definitely think it's a possibility. And then, of course, the multi-spaghetti model guidance. Most of these models, there's even some models that are taking it into New York City, and that's not good. If that's the case, then that's really scary. But there's quite a few models that are in agreement that says that Cape Cod is most likely the area to watch. But yeah, if that does turn out to come into fruition and head towards New York, that's going to be really bad. That'll be really bad. So we're definitely going to have to watch out for this as this continues to move on through. And the general consensus is these models have continued to trend westward. So that's the bad news here. Is that that's the consistency, unfortunately. Only heading to a house on the beach in Yarmouth on Saturday. No big deal. I actually was in Yarmouth when I went up. That's actually where I stayed. Henri intercept Nape? Nope. I'm most likely going to stay home for that one. And I'm most likely going to do radar analysis and stuff like that. I feel like it's most likely going to be the better case for me. Specifically because most of my live streaming equipment isn't exactly the best. I know they have pretty good service up there, but my live streaming equipment's not exactly the best. And so, probably not going to be a good idea for me to go up there with a lot of shaky equipment. And then, of course, I think a lot of people are going to be really interested in the satellite imagery, 3Ds and stuff like that. Now, if I had a larger following base, I definitely would do so. But, sheesh. Do I think it'll head towards the North Carolina coast? I don't think so. I think it'll stay off the North Carolina coast. You guys might get some outer bands. This model right here is a very strong outlier. But I think it'll stay off the coast. I think it'll stay well off the coast, actually. Now, I am curious. I'm going to take a look at the HWRF model and look at Henri and see what they've done to it. And that's nice. And they're expecting a landfall in Cape Cod as well. With a loop-de-loop track. So yeah, so that's going to be interesting. And I think I know why they did why there's a loop-de-loop too. I think I know why. If we take a look at the HWRF para, all right, and then we take a look at the 200 millibar wind, okay? Go back down here to where it's currently at. You can see here's your low pressure system. Here's Henri, and then somewhere up above the low pressure system is the ridge that's going to eventually move this way. Now, what's going to happen here is ridge isn't really going to be a big contribution. That's not that big of an issue. What's going to happen here, and the reason why they think it's going to stall over a 24-hour period, is that this is going to move off to the north, and then it's going to curl westward, into this low pressure system right here. And what's going to happen is this low pressure system is going to come around this way, and they're going to do circles around each other. A huge Fujiwara effect within this general vicinity to basically have this system stall right over New England for the span of 24 hours to even 36 hours. And so watch what happens here. Watch what, let's actually see if I can find, is there any sort of anomalies that I can use here? No, probably not. All right, it's good enough. So I think you'll see what I mean here. So here's your low pressure system right here. Here's your ridge. You can see the clockwise motion of that. And here's your low pressure system right here. So what's going to happen is that you'll see the low pressure stall right there. This other low pressure system starts to creep in, and they try to merge here. They try, keyword try. And then they move off into the steering flow. Even though you have some decent steering flow here coming from the south, it'll stay over New England because of this Fujiwara effect, most likely. Fujiwara effect's pretty hard to forecast here, too. But it's just all based off of circumstance at this point, and here it is. The right circumstances for this to happen. Should Boston be worried? I would have to say so. There could potentially be some flooding and strong storm surge within that area. And specifically because Boston has a lot of interstates that are underground. They have a lot of tunnels over there that are underground. Some of these areas could potentially be flooded and potentially impassable. So that's not good at all. That's really not good. So this is gonna be really tough to digest if this is the worst case scenario, because if this does head off into this general vicinity, we will see most likely some storm surge heading in towards that general area. Is it possible that Henri and the low could merge into a superstorm? Probably not, because with tropical systems, they typically favor a lot more moisture, and low pressure systems in general, severe weather low pressure systems, don't really care. Specifically with a lot of dry air, if they have dry air, and that'll kill tropical systems as well. So this will probably stay the same, as well as some relatively cool ocean waters that Henri will be over. So Henri will most likely weaken while it's sitting over there. So yeah, that's really concerning. That is very concerning if it does sit over there for 24 hours, which it most likely will. That Fujiwara effect will keep it over there. And we'll have some pretty strong storm surge in places like Boston. That's really concerning now that I think about it. Now, the one way out of this system here, the one way out, all right, first off, I'm starting to get a higher confidence that this will most likely make landfall here in the Northeast because of this low pressure system. This low pressure system will most likely guide it right into New England. The one way out from this system here, the only way that it isn't very bad, is if Henri doesn't intensify and this low pressure system right here actually goes a bit further to the north and east. If it goes a bit further towards the northeast, then Henri will actually go a lot further off the coast, and then it will stall over here. So it won't be as significant. But I've got a very high confidence now that I'm actually seeing this, that we'll potentially see some Fujiwara action. But it all depends. It all depends upon the placement of this low right here and this ridge. All right? It all depends upon that. Let's take a look at the GFS and take a look here. Yeah, GFS saying the same thing. So here's the ridge, here's the trough, and this will most likely steer right into here again. And you can see the low pressure system actually move up with Henri. So the low pressure system gets slung around, gets caught up by Henri, and then it all goes off. Could they merge? It seems more likely if they got closer together, they would weaken. In this instance, it would weaken, but it'll be too late by the time they merge because it'll already be up in New England. By the time they merge, that's the reason why it'll stall over New England for as long as it does. Because they're kind of like doing the tango around with each other. And, you know, if you ever go to like some sort of ball or gala where they're doing dances and they're circling with each other, holding hands and stuff like that, that's basically what's happening right here. That's the best description I can give you, is that they're just rotating around each other until they combine. And by the time they combine, it'll be weak enough to dissipate, but the damage has already been done. So I'm starting to get a higher confidence that this will most likely make landfall here in the Northeast. And I hate to say that too. I hate to say that because I don't want this to happen. You know, I'm not trying to be a doomcaster or anything if people thought I was. You know, there's just, based off of the information right here, this is really concerning. It is really concerning. Trying to take a look at the latest reconnaissance data. Don't exactly see all too much from it. So there you go. Now, of course, as I said, I still have a little bit of doubt. I still have a little bit of doubt because if this low pressure system can continue to move off further east, Henri could potentially not make landfall and stay a little bit off the coast. But if this low pressure system continues to sit right here. All right, this is the only time I'm actually going to look at the NAM 3 kilometer. All right, this is the only time I'm going to look at the NAM 3 kilometer for tropics. Because the NAM, in general, is pretty good with low pressure system placements. So let's take a look. There's Sunday. And the low pressure is positioned right over Norfolk. So it most likely will make, it probably could make landfall. Probably will. Either that or it'll be right off the coast of, either that or it'll be right off the coast of Long Island and sit there that way. But it's just you got that low pressure system that's there. So sheesh. Yeah, positions right here. Norfolk, Connecticut? No, Norfolk, Virginia. That's where this other low pressure system is positioned. The actual center low pressure system of Henri will continue to track northward. But yeah, that's... Sheesh. That's pretty crazy. As I said, you know, if you have friends and family who lives in these areas, I would just nudge them and say, hey, this stuff's most likely going to be coming towards you. And it won't just be like any sort of tropical storm either. It most likely will be a hurricane by the time it gets up there. That's what most of the models actually say, and that's what the National Hurricane Center says too. If we go to Henri, show you the cone of uncertainty here. By 2 p.m. Sunday, right here, forecast to become a hurricane as it gets around Nantucket, probably within the span of a couple miles. And then is expected to sit over New England over the span of 24 hours. That is not the best case scenario. That is not the best case scenario. I will continue to upload videos in the morning, give you all tropical updates as much as I can. So if I get the latest information, I'll be able to give it to you. All right? I'm committed to giving the most accurate data as I can. I'll try and make it as accurate as I can. But this is just a really bad situation. Unfortunately, I don't think we have the mesoscale on Henri yet. I don't think we do. Outbreak in Wisconsin? Can't say that there will be, honestly. Because, as of right now, it's kind of a bit shaky. Maybe a bit more of a damaging wind threat, but let's take a look. I'll take a look at models here on Pivotal and see what's up. Take a look at soundings. And I know you guys may not be able to understand what soundings are. But I still want to take a look at it anyways. And we're going to cherry pick soundings anyways. Great job catching that tornado yesterday. Thank you so much. Most likely is tornado there, which I'm pretty stoked about. Looks like environmental conditions actually do pick up a bit. Yeah, it might be a little bit linear. Very low to the surface, though. Very low to the surface. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of flooding. There's going to be a lot of flooding with this if it does head off over there. So that's really, it's pretty bad. It looks like the environmental conditions are actually worse the further south you get. So over here in Iowa, photographs are actually really good. So it might be Iowa that gets the main threat of tornadoes. Which if that's the case, then that's definitely an area to watch. I'm not sure if there's actually a radar over there. Is there? I can't tell. Goodland, Kansas. Is there a radar? There might be. There might be. Full moon on Henri when possible shore touch. Oh yeah, that's right. Some more issues potentially with flooding. Let us see. How to look at that. Congrats on my first NATO yesterday. Thank you. As I said, I was so surprised to get my first tornado. I was so surprised. didn't really hit me until till right afterwards. But I was so happy that it actually happened over a rural area. Yeah, I would just advise people who live up in this area, because the main thing now is that we have to get the word out. Main thing here now is that we got to get the word out. If you live in this area up here, gotta watch out for this. You really do, because this is a it's a pretty concerning situation. Actually, who am I kidding? Very concerning situation. Because if you think of it this way, as this system does continue to get closer and closer, and let's actually go over to, let's go to the HWRF model again for Henri. We're going to go to the 10-meter wind, all right? As it gets closer and closer, look at this. You got a lot of wind, shear, or a lot of winds at the surface that's pushing onto Cape Cod in this general area. And so there's going to be a lot of storm surge here within New England. But the same thing could potentially happen. This thing could continue to move further west, because there is a couple models that say that this could potentially head off into that area. And of course, there's going to be a widespread tornado threat possible with this too. So we really got to watch out as well. NYC won't get hit. According to the models, it won't right now. But the models have continued to trend westward, so the potential for it to hit NYC is still possible. And there has been a couple models that have mentioned that it could do so. So it would just have to depend upon where this thing goes. If you were to ask me, in my honest opinion, as to where this could potentially hit, I think right where it's at right now is actually really good. It's actually really good right within here. I think it'll be too far to the east of Long Island. I still think NYC could potentially be part of this activity. But I have a high confidence that if this thing were to make landfall here in the United States, it would have to be Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard, Cape Cod area, to potentially even Rhode Island. Just based off of what is happening with the models and how it continues to progress. And a lot of people might be, looking at this and saying, oh, you're just using the models to forecast. Well, the thing of it is most models have been forecasting the environments around it, and we've been looking at that environment around it. And if we take a look at the continue to take a look at the HWRF model here, and we take a look at the 200 millibar winds. Right here is Henri, but this is basically the wind shear around Henri. And as I said, here's another low pressure system right here that sits right over Virginia. And what this is going to do is this basically is going to take Henri and sling it. It's going to try and take it around the counterclockwise flow of this system. And they're basically going to do literally the tango. Once Henri goes over here, it's going to sit over New England for 24 hours. Most likely around 24 hours. And then this low pressure system is going to get carried off with it. This low pressure system will get slung right into the system and then head off. I guarantee you, if that's the case, that's probably going to happen. It all depends upon where this low pressure system is, but there's a high confidence that this low pressure system will be right here and that it will be impacting places like Cape Cod. So the big thing here is that it most likely will have impacts within Cape Cod all the way through. And we'll just watch it through here again. You can see the low pressure system sit right here over Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut. And it'll just sit here for the good part of 24 hours, all the way until late Monday evening into Tuesday morning, and then it'll just go. say we do another prayer moment of silence at some point in time. Seemed to have worked well on March 17th. It did, actually. I think God was there to protect us that day. Because that day looked very, very dangerous. But it seemed as if things just stopped as soon as we did it. So that was the good news. But yeah, if you guys are new to the channel, or new to the stream, I should say, it is expected that Tropical Storm Henri will become a hurricane and then most likely make landfall somewhere near Cape Cod. And it'll most likely make landfall around Cape Cod right about Sunday afternoon into Sunday evening. If the model stays the same as of right now, how would Southeastern New York be affected? Most likely in the beginning, there will be some pretty decent storm surge that could be impacting places near Long Island. Not particularly, strong storm surge for like NYC areas. They could potentially get some storm surge, but not exactly a lot. But there will most likely be the risk there, as well as the potential risk for tornadoes within your general vicinity as well. Especially with some of these outer bands here. You can see some of these outer bands that will most likely sling across. And there will be a decent tornado risk there as well. You can see how those outer bands actually do so. You can see how they go over here. So there could potentially be a tornado risk within that general vicinity. In your opinion, how strong will it get? Definitely thinking it will probably be a hurricane upon landfall. I definitely think it'll be a hurricane upon landfall. I'm more concerned about Boston more than anything. Because if they do get storm surge, dude, it's gonna flood most of the tunnels, most of the interstates over there. And that's gonna be pretty bad. It's gonna be really bad if that's the case. HMOD model's really interesting. It says landfall on Long Island. Does it really? It does. It does say landfall on Long Island. And if that's the case, then New York City's going to be in a lot bigger threat too. Because of course the winds are going to be a lot stronger. And it approaches from the south and east, heading to the north and west. So that's pretty interesting. Areas in the sound is probably going to get channeled. All this will probably get channeled further towards LaGuardia and even the New York City areas. And that's pretty concerning as well, too. So that's pretty concerning. It's really concerning. Wouldn't rule out Delmarva landfall if it stays weak. I don't foresee it to go that far west, because the steering will keep it far off of the coast of the Carolinas and Delmarva. Yeah, that's gonna suck. There's gonna be some huge storm surge issues with this storm. But the big thing here The big thing here with these models is that the general consensus is that this thing will most likely head off near Cape Cod, and it most likely will create some very heavy flooding amounts within these areas. Which model do you trust has the best insight on what is going to happen? As of right now, it's gonna be funny enough to say it, but I gotta say the HWRF. I think the HWRF model is actually probably going to be the best model to use in this instance, because a lot of the other models think it'll be worse. And I don't think it'll be significantly, like, bad to, like, Category 3 hurricane status, like major hurricane. Although it could potentially rapidly intensify into a major hurricane. There is still the potential for that, but as of right now, it seems the HWRF model is pretty good with this. It takes into account a lot of the Hurricane Hunter data. And it typically has a good starting point as well, too. Oh, wow. That's really crazy. Yeah, there's a lot of places along there. Anywhere basically along I-95. There's so many places there, too. There are so many places there. If you guys are new to the channel, please be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications, because I will be updating everyone with the latest information that's going to be happening around here. I will be uploading a video tomorrow morning for you all. It'll be a lot earlier than it was today, because kind of slept in a little. But yeah, it'll definitely be a lot earlier. And it will definitely be informative as to where this will potentially create impacts. But yeah, there is... It is going to be crazy here. And the thing of it is, too, is that when this thing does get close to here, if it does make a landfall over in this general vicinity, you guys can 100% guarantee that I will be live streaming the landfall of this. All right? Whether it is a tropical storm or a hurricane, I will live stream the landfall of this, and I will give you guys latest information, updates as to what all is happening. And there's a lot of, I believe there's a lot of traffic cameras up there too, so I'll have some pretty good sky cam footage, beach cam footage of all of that up there. We'll have recon analysis on there too. So I'll have all sorts of data for you all. Even 3D stuff too as well. For people who may be new to the channel, we even have 3D satellite imagery and 3D radar imagery. So it'll be pretty cool to see. Personally, I like the 3D satellite imagery. Looks pretty cool. Does indeed look pretty cool. All right. Well, I'm gonna start taking questions here for people. The big thing here as well is that, as I said, if you know anyone who lives in these areas, you should probably let them know that this is going to be coming to their area. And of course, you know, if you want to help a buddy out, help a good old, oh my goodness, my ears just died. And everyone else's ears just died too. What just happened with IEM bot? Storm Prediction Center's day 1 convective outlook. Let's turn that off, because that just hurt my ears. That just hurt everyone else's ears. Sheesh. Anyways, if you want to help a buddy out, share my channel with them too. Because, yeah, they're probably going to want to figure out what all is happening, and I'll get them the best information I can. Dominator drone is dead. Yeah, indeed. So how's Maine looking? Maine probably will get some localized flooding with it through this. Most likely will. With some showers and thunderstorms off to the northern side of this storm. I don't see the hurricane force winds with this. I see 70-mile-per-hour winds right here from the reconnaissance that left. But in regards to buddy old pal Grace, not a whole lot of dice here. Not a whole lot of dice. Do have some strong 55 knot winds though, which is 65 miles per hour. So this most likely will be a 65 mile per hour tropical storm in the next update. So 60 mile per hour storm right now. But let's pray it stays in the ocean. I agree. I agree, my friend. I agree. Very strong hurricane force winds at flight level. Very strong hurricane force winds at flight level. I'm actually curious as to how strong those Google Earth has encountered a problem. Well, that's very nice and helpful. Thank you, Google Earth. Bah. Purple is hurricane force winds. It's just at flight level. Not all translating to the surface here, unfortunately. Is that a drop zone? Look at that. That was a drop zone right outside the 60-mile-per-hour wind barb. So what's all this? 77-mile-per-hour peak flight level winds. 80, 81, 84. If these winds can translate to the ground, then my goodness, yeah, this thing will intensify quite rapidly again. And that'll be kind of concerning. 998, 998, 998. So it seems as if 998 is the low. Oh no, 997. Sheesh. Yeah, 997 might be the lowest pressure from Grace, according to the hurricane hunters there. Is NYC going to get big flooding? Maybe citywide emergency. Maybe the governor will have to talk about it. Maybe rescues. Possibly. Maybe. It depends upon how far west Henri goes. When will you know if the Hudson Valley, New York, 2 hours from New York City, will be safe? Most likely within the next day or two. Most likely within the next day or two. Definitely by Saturday morning. All right, I'll have a video for everyone on Saturday morning. It will most likely be the go-ahead as to what the conditions are going to be along portions of, Cape Cod, the Long Island areas, even into New York. Now, the big thing here is that they are expecting Henri to become a hurricane by late Friday evening into Saturday morning. So, in the period of Friday evening into Saturday morning, we'll probably have our answer as to whether or not this will be primed to actually head off to New England, the northeast of the United States, and potentially become as strong as it could be. So, we'll really have to just watch out. Yeah, and as I said, I'll be giving you guys as much information as possible. Alrighty, well, I think that's gonna do it for me here this evening. I'm really tired and exhausted. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna turn on my face cam here. You guys can see my hair's pretty crazy. Alright, I look like Big Z from Surf's Up. I look like I just woke out of bed. Woke up out of bed, and that's not exactly best case scenario. Look at my hair. It's very, very disheveled. Not exactly the best thing to look at. But, yeah, I'm really tired. And so I felt like I should have just got you out this information that this stuff really hasn't changed, besides the track of Henri has went further west, and Grace most likely will continue to intensify further. So, yeah, if you haven't already, subscribe, like the live stream, share it with friends and family, except for the fact that we missed 2 minutes of the beginning because my audio was cut off. And yeah, I will catch you guys tomorrow morning with a video. Expected to be around 9. Around 9 Eastern, maybe a little bit later, like 9:30 Eastern. That's around the time in which I'm expecting to upload my video. And then I'm probably going to do a live stream tomorrow evening for the severe weather and stuff like that. And then, of course, when Henri does approach the New England coast, and if it does make a landfall within this general vicinity, I will be live streaming and I will be doing live analysis for it. So, yep, that will most likely be it. I will catch you guys tomorrow. So